Welcome to the deep dive. Let's picture this. You're maybe an ambitious professional in India, or perhaps a student with big dreams about studying and building a career in the US. For a long time, the path seemed pretty clear, didn't it? You'd aim for an F1 student visa, then maybe an H-1B work visa, and, down the line, hopefully, a green card. But lately, well, that familiar path feels like it's really starting to crumble. It's becoming this maze of tougher hurdles, much higher costs, and just this unsettling feeling of uncertainty. So today, we're going to unpack this. Okay, let's unpack this seismic shift that's happening. Our mission for this deep dive is to explore exactly how people are reacting, how a growing number of individuals are actually pivoting towards U.S. investor-driven immigration pathways. We're talking specifically about programs like EB-5 and E2. They're emerging not just as, backup plans, but potentially as more dependable routes to long-term residency, maybe even green cards. We've gathered some crucial insights into how this landscape is evolving, and our goal here is to really distill the most important knowledge for you to offer a clearer path through what's become a pretty complex subject. So let's start by looking at those traditional visa routes, because honestly, understanding why people are looking elsewhere is pretty key here. Take the H-1B work visa. It's been like a lifeline for so many skilled professionals for years, but it's seen a really dramatic downturn. For fiscal year 2026, get this, H-1B visa registrations just plummeted to 358,000.
Wow, 358,000. That's quite a drop.
It really is. To put that in perspective, it's a sharp 26.9% fall from just the year before, and it's over 54% lower than what we saw back in fiscal year 2024, just 2 years ago.
That's staggering. And how many actually got selected?
Well, that's the next point. Out of those hundreds of thousands, only 120,141 applicants were actually selected in the lottery.
Oof. The odds just keep getting longer, don't they?
They really do. And this drastic change, it isn't just random. It's a direct result of some recent policy updates. A major shift is this focus on fraud prevention and what USCIS is calling beneficiary-centric selection criteria.
Right, the one entry per person rule, essentially.
Exactly. What it means for you, the applicant, is that now each individual gets only one entry into the H-1B lottery. It doesn't matter how many different employers might sponsor you.
Which used to happen a lot, inflating the numbers.
Precisely. This was a really critical change. It was designed to level the playing field and, significantly cut down on that artificial inflation of application numbers we used to see. And on top of that, they hiked the registration fee. Went from a pretty nominal $10.
Yeah, I remember that.
All the way up to $250.
Wow. That's a huge jump.
It is, and you can imagine the impact that has, right? Especially for early career professionals, recent graduates who are already managing tight budgets. It just makes it riskier to even throw your hat in the ring.
Definitely adds a barrier.
And it's not just the H-1B having issues. The F1 student visa, which is often that very first step on the ladder for many, that's also facing just unprecedented scrutiny and unpredictability.
We've been hearing those stories.
Yeah, countless reports of really rapid denials. We've heard about some interview experiences reportedly ending in as little as 10 seconds.
10 seconds. It's barely enough time to say hello.
I know. Think about that. Maybe a decade of academic dreams, significant financial investment, potentially just dismissed in moments.
It's heartbreaking, really.
It truly is, and that kind of experience, it just shatters hopes, right? It makes future planning incredibly difficult for these aspiring students who dream of making that transition from studying to working in the U.S.
What's fascinating here is looking at the drivers behind this shift. These aren't just random roadblocks. There are clear strategic policy constraints really shaping this. The new H-1B regulations, like you just explained, the fraud control focus, getting rid of duplicate registrations, plus those higher fees, they're clearly designed to make that H-1B path less accessible, maybe less appealing for, let's say, speculative applications.
Trying to ensure more genuine applications move forward, perhaps?
Possibly. It feels like they're trying to channel the flow of talent differently, but the immediate impact for hopeful candidates is, well, it's undeniable. It's tougher. Then you layer on the student visa volatility. Those ongoing F1 rejections, they have a real chilling effect.
You can see how it would discourage people.
Absolutely. It's actively discouraging bright, incoming students, making them really rethink those long-term plans that traditionally involved U.S. study followed by an H-1B. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, you also have to consider the growing family planning concerns. This is a big one.
Ah, the dependence issue.
Exactly. Many families are seeking long-term stability, especially with dependent children who are getting close to, or might soon, age out at 21.
Right, losing their dependent status on a parent's temporary visa.
Precisely. And that critical timeline, that deadline, often pushes families to look for the longer-term assurances you might get from investor-based visas, rather than relying on temporary non-immigrant routes where they could face separation down the road. So for you, the listener, when you put all these mounting challenges together, that traditional immigration ladder really does feel increasingly fractured, almost like it's broken in places.
Fractured is a good word for it. It really does feel like a seismic shift. And that idea you mentioned earlier, like the U.S. has put up a help wanted sign, but maybe more for capital than just talent now.
It does feel a bit like that sometimes, doesn't it? A different kind of entry point being emphasized.
It certainly does. So given all this uncertainty, how are families and professionals rethinking their approach? Here's where it gets really interesting. These investment-based pathways are stepping into the spotlight. And they're looking like surprisingly robust responses, offering a more direct, maybe more reliable route forward.
So let's talk about the big one first, EB-5.
Let's dive into the EB-5 program. This is basically a route for green cards through investment. To qualify, an applicant needs to invest US $800,000 into a USCIS-approved project.
Okay, $800,000, that's the threshold now.
That's the minimum, yes, typically in what's called a targeted employment area, or TEA. And these projects, they aren't just about taking the money, they also have to generate structural employment.
Meaning jobs, right?
Right. Very simply, the investment has to lead to the creation of at least 10 full-time jobs for U.S. workers. These can be direct or indirect jobs, usually shown through a solid business plan. And for faster processing in some cases, this job creation often needs to be clear and measurable within about 3 months of the investment.
And the timeline for the whole process.
The timeline from application to getting the conditional green card can range quite a bit, but often it's somewhere between 3 to 18 months.
Which, in the world of U.S. immigration, is actually pretty quick for permanent residency.
It really is, relatively speaking. But here's a crucial point, especially for you listening from India. The competition for EB-5 visas is immense. There are only around 700 EB-5 visas allocated annually specifically to Indian applicants. That seems like a tiny slice of the global pie.
700 a year. That's not many, considering the demand.
Not at all. But despite this limited quota, interest just from F1 student visa holders alone has surged by nearly 100%.
Wow, 100% just from F1 holders. That tells a story.
It really does. These students are often acutely aware of their limited options after graduation, right? The H-1B lottery odds are worse, maybe their dependent children are nearing that aging out point.
So they see EB-5 as a potential escape hatch, a more certain path.
Exactly. Immigration experts are largely attributing this spike to that growing frustration over the massive backlogs in other categories like H-1B, but also family-based green cards. There are over 11 million U.S. visa applications pending processing across all categories right now. 11
million, that's just mind-boggling.
It is. So in this kind of landscape, the EB-5 is increasingly being seen as perhaps the most reliable and expedited route available for securing permanent residency if you have the means.
Okay, so if we connect this to the bigger picture.
Yeah.
The EB-5 definitely offers clear advantages that those traditional visas just don't. You get direct permanent residency, and crucially, there's no lottery system.
That absence of a lottery is a huge draw, absolutely.
It is. But the limitations are just as clear, aren't they? First, that significant financial investment, $800,000, is a lot of money. And second, specifically for Indian nationals, that very limited annual quota, it creates a unique bottleneck.
So it seems like a direct path, but there's a catch with the quota.
Well, yes and no. The real insight for Indian applicants, I think, lies in understanding the complex backlog dynamics.
Yeah.
Those country-specific quotas don't always tell the whole story, because unused visas from other countries or other categories can sometimes roll over.
Ah, so it's not always a hard cap of 700.
Not necessarily in practice every single year. It means that strategic timing, very careful project selection, like choosing a regional center project with a proven track record, maybe in a rural TEA, which gets priority processing and meticulously documenting the lawful source of your funds, become even more critical than just having the investment amount itself.
So it's about strategy, not just money.
Precisely. So for you, it's about understanding the strategic value here and the very significant trade-offs involved. It's high cost, yes, but potentially a high reward pathway for securing that long-term U.S. residency, especially if you time it right and choose your project carefully.
Okay, that makes sense. Given those trade-offs and the sheer demand for EB-5, it's definitely vital. We look at some alternative visa types that are also getting a lot more attention now as practical routes to the U.S.?
Good idea. What else is gaining traction?
Well, first up, let's talk about the E-2 investor visa. Now, this one's a non-immigrant pathway. That means it doesn't directly lead to a green card like the EB-5, but it allows you to make a, quote, substantial business investment in the U.S. and actually operate that business.
Okay, non-immigrant, but for business owners, what's the advantage?
The key advantage is its potential for indefinite renewals. As long as the business is running successfully, you can keep renewing the visa, offering a great deal of flexibility and long-term stay. However, and this is a really crucial point for our listeners from India, it's only available to nationals of specific treaty countries.
And India is not on that list, right?
Unfortunately, no. India does not currently have an E-2 treaty with the U.S., so an Indian citizen can't directly apply unless they also hold dual citizenship with a treaty country like the UK, Canada, Grenada, Turkey, Japan, many others.
So dual citizenship is the key there for Indians.
It is. And even if you qualify, remember, it allows you to live and work in your U.S. business for extended periods, but converting that to a green card usually requires finding a different immigration route down the line, maybe through EB-5 later or another category.
So it's not a direct path to permanent residency itself, more like a long-term temporary solution for eligible business investors.
Exactly. And that substantial investment for E2, it isn't a fixed dollar amount like EB-5. It just needs to be enough to ensure the business can operate successfully and show commitment. Often, people talk about ranges maybe $100,000 to $200,000 or more, but it really depends on the type of business.
Got it. So E2 is an option, but with big caveats for Indians. What else?
Then we have the L1 and O1 visas. These are becoming quite popular among skilled Indian professionals who maybe don't have the $800,000 for EB-5, or they're looking for a different kind of opportunity based on their career.
Right, the L1 for transfers and O1 for extraordinary folks.
That's right. The L1 visa is for intracompany transfers. It's specifically designed for employees moving between qualifying firms, typically, from an overseas office of a multinational company to a U.S. office of that same company.
So ideal for people already working for big global companies.
Exactly. It's a fantastic option for established professionals whose companies have a presence both in India and the U.S. It lets them essentially transfer their expertise. Then the O1, often nicknamed the Einstein visa, is for individuals of extraordinary ability.
Sounds impressive. What does that actually mean?
It means people who have demonstrated really exceptional talent in their field. Could be arts, science, education, business, athletics. Extraordinary ability is more than just being good. It implies sustained national or international acclaim.
So how do you prove that? Awards? Publications?
Things like that, yes. Evidence could include major awards, significant publications where you're the author, maybe leading roles in distinguished organizations, commanding a high salary compared to others in the field. It's a high bar.
Definitely seems like it.
But both of these visas, L1 and O1, offer distinct advantages. Notably, much faster processing times compared to H-1B waits, typically maybe between 3 to 6 months.
That speed is a huge draw, I bet.
Absolutely. It really helps relieve pressure from that highly competitive H-1B route. But of course, they have their own specific limitations. The L1 is only for employees of qualifying firms with that international link, so it's not open to everyone. You need that corporate connection.
Right, not for freelancers or people at purely domestic companies.
Correct. And for the O1, while it's excellent for really distinguished professionals, you have to meet that very high standard of credentials and achievements. It's truly for those considered at the very top of their field.
Okay, so L1 needs the company structure, O1 needs the stellar resume.
Basically, yes.
This whole discussion raises an important question, really for anyone thinking about U.S. immigration right now. How do these different pathways, EB-5, E2, L1, O1, offer such distinct risk-reward profiles? And maybe more importantly, what kind of individual or family situation might each one be best suited for?
That's the key question, isn't it? Matching the path to the person.
It really is.
Yeah.
For instance, the EB-5 involves that huge financial commitment, but it offers the most direct path to a green card, no lottery. Ideal for those who prioritize permanent residency above all else and have the capital available. The E2, if you're eligible through dual citizenship, gives incredible flexibility for business owners, those indefinite renewals.
Okay.
But you have to remember, it's not a direct green card route. You'd need a plan B for permanent residency.
Right, a secondary strategy.
And the L1 and O1, they're really tailored for specific professional profiles. You either need those strong corporate ties for the L1 or that extraordinary, well-documented talent for the O1. They offer faster processing, which is great, and they can be a stepping stone, potentially towards a green card through other means later, but they certainly aren't for everyone.
Fits specific niches.
Exactly. But ultimately, all these options, they contribute to that overarching search for stability and, crucially, legal certainty in U.S. immigration, particularly as those traditional paths, like H-1B, become so much more uncertain. It really boils down to finding the pathway that best aligns with your personal circumstances, your unique skill set or resources, and your long-term goals in the U.S.
So just to sum up what we've really explored today, for many individuals, especially from India, that once reliable ladder, F1 student visa, H-1B sponsorship, moving towards U.S. work and residency it now seems increasingly fractured. The statistics, the policy changes, the anecdotal reports we've looked at, they truly paint a picture of mounting challenges and real unpredictability in those traditional routes.
The ground has definitely shifted.
It really has. And in response, these investor and specialized professional pathways like the EB-5 and where people are eligible, the E2, L1, and O1, they're clearly emerging as more predictable, perhaps more secure alternatives. Now, sure, they require significant financial readiness in some cases or very specific professional qualifications, and they each come with different risk-reward profiles, as you laid out. But these alternative visas seem to be increasingly delivering on providing legal certainty and offering that promise of long-term U.S. residency. And that's a really compelling proposition, isn't it? Especially as shifting U.S. immigration policy raises costs and uncertainty for the more traditional skilled worker routes.
It certainly offers a different kind of security, albeit with different entry requirements. And as we conclude this deep dive, it's maybe worth just pausing to consider the broader implications here. What does this growing shift towards investment and specialized professional-based immigration mean for the U.S. economy and for its long-term talent strategy?
That's a big question.
It is. How might this increasing reliance on, foreign capital on one hand and a highly specific, perhaps niche talent on the other, how might that reshape the very landscape of skilled immigration going forward? It raises some fundamental questions, I think, about accessibility, about economic priorities and global talent acquisition, and ultimately what it means for the future for all those people seeking opportunity abroad. Are we perhaps seeing an immigration system that's becoming increasingly tailored to those with significant financial means, or those with truly extraordinary, maybe niche skills, rather than attracting broad-based talent and ambition as perhaps it once did? That's certainly a question worth mulling over.
A very important thought to leave with. It really highlights how dynamic and, frankly, how challenging navigating this whole system has become. Well, that brings us to the end of this discussion. We hope this deep dive has provided some clarity on these shifting trends. All the best, and we will meet again with another important matter again.